Welcome to day 4 of my Act Outside the Box series, also known as One Man, One Good Cup of Coffee. French roast is a requirement every morning, excuse me, and a discussion about becoming an author and being willing to risk things. Today I'm going to talk about character, in particular my main character, R.W. Clay. 17-year-old kid, grew up on a wheat ranch, a large wheat ranch outside of the Dalles, Oregon. Um, Big baseball player, 6'3", 215 pounds, state player of the year. But what makes R.W. Unique is that he um, is a Christian. Now you go, okay, what makes that unique? Well, in literature, I think it makes it very unique. I attended a writers' conference, the Pikes Peak Writers' Conference in Colorado Springs, and after a session that a major literary agent did, I went up there and just started talking, and I kind of talked about my book, which is not this book; it's another one. And I said, "Well, my character has this and this, and he's a Christian." And the agent immediately looked at me and goes, "No major publishing house will include or will take a work in which." A Christian, an openly Christian person, is the protagonist. And I just kind of went, whoa, that doesn't make any sense. That literary agent worked for a Christian house. That agent still works for a Christian publishing house. But I started looking around at movies, TV, and through the books that I've read, which are numerous, as you see, I have many other shelves behind me. That someone who is Christian just doesn't show up. Now, I do not make R.W. Clay to be an evangelical figure. Um, he is Christian. His family, his dad in particular, pushes that you learn to become a good Christian. And R.W. takes everything very seriously on that. But I also deal in what I call realistic Christianity, which is, yeah, you have these goals, you have these standards out here, but guess what? You're going to mess up. You're going to do something that someone is going to look at your actions or your attitudes and go, man, those Christians, they're such hypocrites. And that's R.W. And how long do I take before I start making R.W. Clay become that good Christian kid who is hypocritical? First paragraph of the novel. Chapter 1. I never met Robbie Schinken until the day I ruined his life, but I hated him with every cell in my body. My dad would whoop me upside the head if he heard me say I hated anyone. He taught me to be a good boy and to learn lessons like be honest and love your neighbor. Well, if those moral lessons are true, I'm batting 500 because I can be honest when I say I hate the guy. Schinken is a boil on the butt of American athletics. Okay, there's your good Christian boy. I hate this guy. And we get into, right off the bat, a major incident involving good boy R.W. Clay and the hated Robbie Schinken. But that's what I want to do. That's all of my characters, whether they're Christian or not, have faults. They have vulnerabilities. I think the one thing that I have learned about myself and my character development is, I don't. I told you I like to do character studies, which are kind of expanded feature stories from in a journalism standpoint. But I think as I start looking at my characters more and more, and R.W. Clay falls into this, I am a writer of vulnerabilities. Um, no matter how heroic, how Casey at the bat um, R.W. Clay may seem. I mean, like I said, 6'3", 215 pounds, state player of the year. Um, you know, major colleges line up to give him a free education. Pro scouts follow him everywhere he goes and chart, what he has done and write down their impressions of this guy. But guess what? Behind that giant sized facade, you have a kid who has very high moral standards, but then violates them. And throughout this book, in various ways, he will violate the stereotypical Christian. And read the book. They're all there. He's a good kid. Yeah, he's a good kid. He's a hard worker. He's worked on the wheat ranch since he was little. He takes his dad's lessons seriously. It's just putting those good moral lessons, love your neighbor, into practice sometimes can be more than a little difficult. And throughout this book, that challenge of standing up and doing the right thing surfaces again and again and again. But if it's true that no publishing house will take a protagonist who is Christian, then I'm sorry to hear that. I think it just gives you a natural jumping off place. Because even if people who hate Christianity know the basic lessons that Christians are supposed to follow. So in developing a character, by saying that he is Christian, there is a certain set of standards that are understood by the reader. And that gives me just a beautiful way, I believe, to start throwing moral crises at R.W. That's a big part of this. He talks one way, he often acts another. Vulnerabilities, that's what good non-thriller develop a character material is all about. One of the books on the shelf behind me is The Burgess Boys by Elizabeth Strout. And if I have to draw a comparison and say, I write more by this author than anyone else, Elizabeth Strout is my goal I reach for. Her stories are modern. All of mine are modern. There's enough going on today with characters and people and events and just the day-to-day grind of living that I don't need to look at any other time frame. Her settings are pretty small time. Maine, which is the area she knew. R.W. grows up in the Dalles, Oregon, a town of, I don't know what the population is now. I think it's probably stayed from 10 to 12,000 people for 50 years. Small town, good people, bad people. And then he goes to Grand Junction, Colorado, not exactly a metropolis. So once again, I share that with Elizabeth Strout. I attempt to dissect those personalities. Elizabeth Strout does a marvelous job in The Burgess Boys. She talks about one family, and she gets down into all the dynamics of brothers and sisters and history and the agitations and irritations that are going on within this family and how it fits against a larger storyline, which is the influx of Somalis into a small Maine town and the tensions that begin when the son of one of the Burgess children takes a severed pig's head and slides it down the aisle at a Muslim mosque. Not overwhelming, you know, but very realistic and very good, and a very good point on which to base a novel. So that's me. I'm not afraid to put R.W. out there as a Christian character. It's obviously outside the box. You see a lot of I notice a lot of Christians showing up in movies and books, and almost every time I can think of off the bat, they're the bad guys. You know, Dan Brown novels. I've sat in on writers' workshops, and you will always have one writer who just loves to write stories in which anything to do with any type of clergy is you know, you're writing about the true devils from hell. So it goes. Anyway, I'm going to take a couple of days off. I want to make note that I'm wearing my University of Oregon shirt today. I am a U of O alum, and I'm proud of my university for much more than just improvement in athletics. But okay, I've got French roast here, and I really need it. So have a good weekend. We're supposed to have a foot of snow in Denver. Fire up the snowblower. Keep the coffee coming. So we'll talk to you again on Monday, and my subject is going to be strong female characters because I have at least one, and in some of my novels, several, and we'll talk about that. So have a good day. Good talking to you, or at you, to be more exact, and we'll talk to you next time.